Okay, all right, let's get started. So first, I'd like to talk about a little bit about the software, right? Uh, just give me a minute. All right. All right. So you should be able to see my screen now. All right. So uh, here you're seeing the software we're gonna use for the HMI design, the FactoryTalk Build Studio. So that's the software we're using. And about this software, I'd like to talk about a little bit more. So first, how do you start? So as you can see, I already started because that's gonna take me a while to run that. But if you search on your computer, you will see here, FactoryTalk Build Studio. So this is a standalone app, right? So you can run your, you can start your software in this way. I'd like to show you the different way, all right? Different way is that, remember I mentioned that yesterday on the Studio 5000, right? So if you start 5000, they will have the, I think they call this one a launch page, right? So from this page, you can also start the FactoryTalk Build Studio, because right now Rockwell is trying to get together to pack the multiple software into one, right? So on this Studio 5000 start page, if you click on the new project, then notice on the left-hand side, underneath the project types, you have three choices, right? So one of them is FactoryTalk Build Studio. So of course we have the logic before, right? So that's where we design the uh, PLC program, right? We call logic designer, right? So this is the HMI design FactoryTalk Build Studio. You can start from here. And also there's another option below there is called view. So with Studio 5000, they actually start these two together, right? So this is called Logic Designer. And the second one, you can see view is a newer version of HMI design. They call this view designer, right? So this is different from the one we are talking about right now, FactoryTalk Build Studio, right? Different software, different interface, different way to design it. All right. So actually, it's quite a difference, between these two software. So at the end of this course, maybe at the end of the semester, if we have time, maybe we can talk about a little bit on the view designer, right? So just that you know that you have at least two different ways to start the FactoryTalk Build Studio, right? Either from the Studio 5000 package start page, or you can start a software from the standalone, right? So once you start, you will create a new project first, right? So this is the interface you will have, right? And remember, I talked about some of the design steps, right? So this is what I want to start at the beginning, because I want you to have a overview of what do we do with the HMI design. All right, you have to follow certain steps. So I will design, I will demo the steps one by one. So let's look at the first one. All right, so the first one is called the project setting. So we want to determine the general appearance of your runtime program. For example, the size of the project window, right? I talked about this a little bit yesterday. Let's look at the demo on here. So this is the software. So again, on the left-hand side, you will see similar to the PLC. In PLC, we call controller organizer, right? So this is the window HMI call Explore, but they serve the same function, same purpose. So you will see a tree structure of all the contents of your project, right? There are quite a lot of them, but we don't have to learn all of them, right? So one of them, this is what we call the project setting, right? So that's the first step. So you don't need to do this every time, but first time when you open this software, I need to make the window bigger a little bit. All right, so in order to show your the whole window out here. So for the first time, you do need to open here to set up some basic settings with the whole project. So the first one is general, right? So that's the window size, right? So we're lucky. The first one is the one we are using in the lab. But if you using different size, you need to come over here to choose different size, right? So that basically determine how big is the area you can work with. And also remember we talk about if later on your screen being upgraded or being changed to different size, you can come over here to change size here. So once you change it, the software will automatically either enlarge it or shrink it proportionally according to the new size. All right, so this is some feature you need to know, right? So you don't have to redesign everything if you have the panel will change. All right, so the second tab is called runtime. All right, with this one, I talk about a little bit. So in the lab, I suggest you to check this box. Right, this is what we call title bar. So the title bar is basically like this. You see the blue bar out here, right? So it's very handy when you try to test or debug on your screen, on your computer screen. So that's why I recommend you to check on this box in order for you to be able to move your window on the HMI on different screen. All right. But I talk about that in the reality, in practical, if you have everything designed, then you want to run that as a production. And then that may not be a good idea to have a title bar, but by that time you can come over here to uncheck this box anyway, right? So this is something you will do for the first time, but you don't have to do it every time, all right? So then once you click OK and then confirm, then you finish the first step, all right? Let's look at the second step. So the second step, I want you to understand that yes, remember yesterday I mentioned that this is a very, very important step because you want to create the term they call device shortcuts. All right. So basically a communication path. So this path is between your design, your HMI, and the hardware and the device you're using. So generally, we are using PLC controller, right? So that's why the over here, I have the bracket on here, right? Normally we'll just point to a PLC controller, but you just have something in your mind that over here, not only PLC controller, you can also connect to other type of devices, all right? But for our course, for our lab, we just focus on PLC. All right, so I'm gonna demo this step 2 now. So how do we set up the communication? So first, let me show you what's running on my computer. So right now, I have my emulator running. You can see here, this is the window. I know it's not running in the lab right now, but on this computer, I would be able to run my emulator. So my PLC controller emulator is on slot number 8. Right. All the other two is just communication modules. So this software will simulate the operation of the PLC controller. And also I have a simple PLC program right now. In order to save time, I already created it and download to the emulator. All right, so you can see here, if you look at the controller organizer, all right, so I create on the left-hand side, you can see here, I create 2 programs. One is called main program. It has 1 routine on here. Then there's another program called lab 1. Also has only one main routine, my main. All right. So I have those two separate programs in order to demonstrate the features with on the HMI. All right. So this is just let you know on the background. All right. So I have these two program open. All right. So you can see here. So this is underneath the main program. All right. I have one very simple one run PB energize PL. This one I meant to represent a maintained push button to energize the pilot line. All right. If you right click, select toggle, you can see here, right? It's highlighted and PL is on. So that means it's running. So I'm running this on the emulator, right? So you can toggle that and turn it off. All right. Same thing for the other one. For lab one, I have exactly same logic, but different, remember, different scope, different program. So this one, you can see on the tooltip, it says underneath the scope of lab one, right? If you look at it, the little window pop up, the scope is called lab one, right? It's different one. I meant to use this one to represent a a momentary push button, right? Same thing on the logic wise, they are the same, right? They design in the same way, but you will see the difference on the HMI. So both are running, all right? So on the HMI, so this is where we need to go down on the left-hand side on the Explore window. To the bottom, you will see, maybe I can make this window big, little bit wider. So there's one node called FactoryTalk link, right? So this is very similar to the Rs links, all right, for the communication setup. So this is where we want to start on the setting, all right? So when you double click, you will see a window pop up. So especially for the first time, you will see here, you will create a new configuration. Right? Just click the finish. And then let me move the window a little bit in order for you to see everything. All right. So yeah, I need to make this window smaller so we don't need that error message. So we can look the so we can look at this window in the full screen. All right. So remember that we talk about device shortcuts, right? So that's where you start, right? So let me bring back the PDF. All right. So the PDF, I'm gonna skip on here. Remember we talk about this. I will mention this picture again. So this is the slide on the PDF. So there are 6 steps on this procedure, right? So first, communication setup, right, to open this window. The second one, you can see here, the second step, you need to create a name, right? This name is what we call shortcuts or call a placeholder. It's a name. So you want, right now you can see I have a name out here. It's called EM5K, Emulation 5000. It doesn't have to be this name, right? You can give any names. So you click add and create the name. So once you have a name, the third step, step 3, you will have to point to your PLC. Remember, we want to get information from your PLC. So on your right-hand side, this is, I'm not sure the window. Let me try to zoom in. Maybe you can have a better view on here. Let me zoom in this part, right? So this is what you will see in the lab, right? Of course, you will see more than this, right? More than the those nodes on there. Underneath the Ethernet, you will see your PLC, right? So you have to highlight your PLC controller. So that's the key, all right? Point to the PLC slot 0. So there are many chances you get a mistake, right? Probably one mistake you think maybe this is the HMI. You can see the picture, that's the icon for the screen. You may think, okay, maybe I should point to here. No, this is the step point to the PLC. You want to get information to and from to PLC to set up the communication. So that's why you need to find the IP address for your PLC, then point to your controller. So this is step 3, all right? And let me make this one bigger on here, all right? So after you point to the PLC, step 4, you need over here right now, this button apply is grayed out, right? But once you choose, you will see that it becomes solid. You will have to click the apply, right, to confirm, all right? So once you click once, this button become gray, right? Unless you change again, it won't become solid again, right? So you only need to click once. If you see that it's being grayed out, that means you already set up. This is the current setting, right? So this is step 4. Step 5, this is very important. You need click this button on the right hand side called copy from design to runtime. So you need to copy this button. You need to click this button, all right? So the reason for that, maybe I should explain the reason for this button, because right now we are working on this step, all right? So the reason for the step 5, step 6 is very simple, right? But you have to do it, right? Lots of people just forgot to click OK, so that won't be confirmed with your setting, right? So regarding step 5 and step 4, all right, I have to show you on this slide. Remember, we talk about the communication, right? So over here, you have a Ethernet router or switch. So right now, you're working on the computer, your laptop or desktop. You're designing the HMI using the studio on here, right? So this is your PLC. And this is your panel, right? The panel will be the one run your HMI design. All right. So there's 3 communication paths going on, right? Remember that we first talked about you need to use this path to download to PLC. So that's one communication. And then right now you're designing HMI. So later on, you will eventually transfer what you design into your panel. All right. So that's the other communication, right? But remember, this third one going on, because once you finish the design and transfer, you will have your PLC to work with your HMI directly. So there's another communication going on here. Everybody understand? So you don't even need to have your PLC connected with your computer. So you can disconnect. You don't have to run your computer anymore. So they can directly talk to each other. So that means they have to know each other, the communication path. All right, so that's why on the communication, you need to take care of all these settings. All right, I'm gonna demonstrate on the software now. All right, so over here, click add. They gave you a default name. All right, so over here, I'll just use same as our lab. Right? I'll create the name called my PLC. Of course, you can give any name out here, right? So I just want you to realize this is the name to point to your PLC controller. All right, so this is the name. Then after that, we need to find the PLC on our right-hand side. And this one will be a little bit different from what you see on your lab, all right? So you will see the Ethernet cable, Ethernet network in the lab, right? But on my current computer, it's different. I'm running the emulator, right? So that's why I'm doing a little bit different from you, all right? So you probably need to find the underneath the Ethernet. But in our current case, I have to find from this node, right? So you'll see different from there. So remember here, right? I'm running on the PLC on the slot number 8. So that's why here I'm highlighting this. All right. So once I highlight, I need to click this. You can see here, this apply is available now. I can click this button and then confirm. So once you confirm, you can see that being grayed out. right? The other button is, remember that, it's what we call copy from design to runtime. The reason we need to copy this is that right now I'm in the design phase, right? Eventually it will become runtime. When it's running, in our case, right, in my situation, same thing for you in the lab, we are pointing to the same PLC controller, right? So that's why there's a shortcut, right? Remember here, there are two tabs, design and runtime. So we can just click this button to quickly copy from the design path into runtime, because we are pointing to the same PLC using the same communication path. But in reality, in industry, that could be different, because when you design that, you may have that with a different PLC as an example design, right? And also the communication path could be different, because you may design that in your office, right? So that communication path definitely is different from the equipment running on the floor, right? So that's what we call runtime. All right, so you just need to know that there is some difference between this, but in our situation, in our lab, it's very straightforward. So that's why there's a shortcut. Rockwell have this in their mind. So they have this shortcut. So click this button, you just need to copy that. Once you copy that, you finish the setting. All the 6 steps you finish, the last step is okay. You need to save. Or if you don't click this one, that won't take effect. All right. So this is the step 2 on the design step, communication. Third one, that's the majority of our time we'll spend on here, create the displays. So we need to create the graphic displays that operator can use to monitor and control. So basically, that's you can see the whole thing, not the whole thing, the majority part of our design is here to create the interface, right? So for this, we can go into the Explorer. On the left-hand side, you will see a node called graphics, right? Underneath this node, there allows different folders. What we need to focus on is this one called displays. So if you open this one, you can see their first 3 are system generated. It has a square bracket surrounding the name, so you don't need to worry about that. All right. So also similar to PLC, the software automatically create a screen called main. All right. So this is software generates by default, right? If you double click this main, you will see a blank screen on here. So right now you can see there are 2 pop-up window on the right hand side, right? You can make it bigger. In our case, I have limited size. So what you can do is that you can, of course, you can close those 2. You don't use them very often, all right? But the other thing, you can click, remember we talked about this docking pin, right? So you can click that, change it to auto high. So that will separate them to the side, right? So they will move on the side. And then whenever you move your cursor to highlight it, they will show up again, right? You can see here, right? So you can still keep them, but you have more space you can work with. All right, so this is the main screen, the system generated at the beginning. Of course, you will think we have a lot of to design, so we will have more things to design. I have here, right? This is the full size. We need to create a new, right? Similar to PLC, we have a main routine. We also have a subroutine, right? So to do that, you have to right click the folder similar to PLC, right? You can see there's option called new. So once you click new on the right hand side, you can see here, there's untitled created automatically. So I just want you to know that you can see here on the background, there's still main here. So now you're opening a blank one, right? Because you can see on the main, it has a shutdown here, right? So that's system generated automatically. So now you're creating a second window. But for this window, you don't have anything yet. And also you don't see that on the list, right? So you have to generate component, right? So how do you create a component? There are two different ways. Let me move my screen down a little bit. So there are two different ways to get all the components. One direct way is over here. There's a panel on the top. So it has different icons. Actually, they are the graphic components available for you from this software package. Remember the tooltip. So if you move your cursor around here, you will see the information. Like right now, I'm highlighting a little bit icon. It tells you this is what we call maintained a momentary push button. And then right beside it is maintain push button. There are two different type of buttons. And then you can see there's a large push button. We don't have to learn that. All right, so there's so many of them. We don't need to learn all of them. We only need to focus on a few components to be able to design a very decent basic HMI. All right, so this is one way to get all the graphic component. The other way is to use the menu bar. So one of the menu is called objects. So if you click objects, you will see different categories, right? So you can see, for example, drawing. So with drawing, you have all this available, right? They have different names out here. With push button, remember we just show you the picture. It has momentary, maintain, large, multi-state, right? All the options are here, right? So this is the two different ways to find your component, right? Either way, so you can find which way is best suitable for you. All right. Okay, so I'll just start to use the shortcuts. All right. So remember we have a maintain push button. So that's where we want to select this graphic object. So you need to click. So once you click, notice when you move your cursor to the screen change to a different shape. It has, if you look closer, it has a text on there called MAINT button. So that means you already select this tool. All right. So once you have this, you can start locate on the screen, then press your mouse on the left button and start to draw. So that's where you can see the shape on your button. All right. So once you release your button, you have to hold the button to draw. All right. So once you release the button, the object created on the background, and then same time, there's a pop-up window open. So this window is called property window. So you can see here, right? Maintain push button, properties. So they have different laws, features, properties, attributes, right? Again, you don't have to set up everything, right? You can just, some of them you can change as a default to accept that as a default. All right. So for example, over here with the general, right? So we can just accept that. We don't need to do anything, right? Of course, you can change shape, color, background, right? But I don't want to do that. We just click next one. So with button, we know there are two different states. So on the left-hand side, you can see state 0, state 1. There are two of them, right? So on the right-hand side, this is what you can set up with the property associated with state 0, because state 0 right now is being highlighted. And notice you can also choose state 1. So once you choose state 1, that's right-hand side, it seems same, right? But that's actually associated with different states, right? Notice here the value, right? Notice on here, you can see state 0, the default is value 0. And state 1, the default value is 1. So you need to realize you're doing different states, all right? So for state 0, I can accept everything, all right? So maybe I can, they call caption, right? I just type in some text on there, and you can change the size if you want, right? Also, you can change the color, right? So when you apply that, you can see on the background, right? So that shows up on the button right away. All right, so this is with state 0. So when you click state 1, so that means when you press the button, right, the button will send PLC value 1. All right, of course you can change the caption, but this time I can do something different. I want to have a different color. So the back color, I change from the default blue to red, right? So that's the appearance you can change on the button. All right. Most important thing, you want to set up the connections to PLC. All right. So once I click this, you will see the button change to red color. Right. So that will accept what you set up before. Right. So that's the state before you set up the red color. So on the connections, you have two attributes, two properties. One is called value, the other one is called indicator, right? So you have different columns. One of them is called tag. So that means the PLC tag, right? So when you click this button, that will pop up a window, right? There are lots window pop up, so you need to know what you're doing, all right? So this window is called tag browser, right? So you use this window to browse the tag to set up the connection, all right? So one thing about this, you need to refresh. You can see here, right now they have a button. You need to refresh folders because remember we set up a name called My PLC. It didn't show up on here, right? If you open system, nothing there, right? We need to see the connection to My PLC. So either you can press this button or right click, you have option on here, refresh all folders. You need to keep, sometimes even one time you couldn't get the name that you can see here. Right now I got My PLC on here. But if sometimes that doesn't work, you have to keep pressing the button. Every time when you do the refreshing, you just force the software to browse the PLC. All right, so now we have the name My PLC. This is a folder. If you open here, right, so there's subfolders. We want to look at online, right? So if you look at online, notice here, right, there are two subfolders. One is called main program, the other one is called lab 1. Right, remember I show you on here on the PLC controller, the ads actually match up with here. Right, one is called main program, the other one called lab 1. Right, so this is the browsing with that. So we want to use this to get to the maintain button, right, which is the main program. So when I highlight my main program folder on the right hand side, you will see PB and PL. So that's the tags available in there, right? So you can see here PB and PL, right? So that's what we need. This is a button. So double click on here, you make the connection on there, right? So then you have to set up indicator. The reason I will talk about later when we get into component. But for now, for button, you just need to know you need to set up indicator, same connection to the PB. All right. Basically, it's just if you look at here, the arrow, right? You want to have a two-way communication as an indicator, right? So when you press button, you want to change same value. So notice here, one common mistake, you think, okay, the indicator is PL, maybe I should connect to the PL. No, because you're designing a push button, you want connect this to the push button. PL is a different object, right? So this is why you need to connect both to the PB. So when you click on this OK, then you set up this button. All right, so you have this one, tool is still selected. If you click somewhere else, that's gonna disappear, right? So one thing about this screen is that, notice here, it's still called untitled. So this is a common mistake. People always get into the design and forgot to save. So because you may spend maybe hours to design your graphic interface, forgot to save. That's a common mistake. So right now, I don't have my sub screen on here, right? So I need to click save. So once I click save, I have a chance to name that, right? Of course, maybe I want to give a different name, right? I just use my display, right? My display 1, right? Just give the detailed name. Once you click OK, you will see the name appears on here. So you need to do this from time to time, all right? If you don't do this, this software is not very stable. Sometimes it crash. Once the software crash, if you didn't save what you designed on the screen, you're gonna lose everything, right? So that's why one reminder, you have to save your work from time to time, all right? So this is the design. Even though I haven't finished everything, I can maybe see the next tab. You can see here, step 4, all right? So I will come back to finish the design. Of course, there are lots of different things we need to add on here, but I want to go through all the steps on here. So the step 4, you can see startup and navigation. So that means you need to set up initial graphic and also provide a way to let the operator to go through the displays. So for example, right now we have 2 different screens, right? Main and my display. So same thing on the on here. If you click, this is a flag called startup. If you click the startup, you can see here the default setting, right? It's main. So that's they call initial. You can see here initial graphic main. We have 2 of them, right? One is called main, the other one is I just created my display 1, right? So the default is main, right? So you don't have to change it. So that means when the software is running, this screen gonna open up first, right? And your new design will be just a subscreen, right? So you don't have to change it, just accept the default. But how do you get to this one, right? To this screen? Because when software start, the main will start to open. It has a shutdown button created. So now we want to create a navigation. So you need navigate the screen by using a button. So if we move the cursor up to here, so one of the button is called go to display button. Right? You see here, right? So this is a very simple way to set up navigation. There are different components. Again, we don't have to learn all of them. All right. So for example, I create a display button the same way as before. All right. So for this one, I can go into here, click this button to choose which display I want to open with this button. So now I can choose my display 1. Click OK, and then you have to let operator know this button will go to display 1, right? So maybe just you can give any information. For me, I'll just use my title on here, right? Maybe give a bigger text. When you apply on here, you can see here. So that labeled on the button, right? So the button tells, okay, you can go to my display 1 by pressing this button, right? So you already connect the underneath the general, you already connect to this display and click OK, you finish. All right. So this is how do you create this navigation. And then on here, on the on this new display you created, probably you want to have a similar button to go back to main. So for example, you create another one on here, and this one you want to connect to main, right? So you want to go back. Remember, navigate, right? You need to have a both way. So if you go to the label, and you may create a text called main, or yeah, you can give anything information back to main, something like that, right? So you can create and apply. So okay, so that's what you can create the navigations between this, all right, by using one of the very simple component called go to display button for navigate. And then the next step, you can test, create and transfer. That's a big step. So for now, I can only show you a very simple way, test. So sometimes you just want to see a quick result, right? For example, I already finished this button, right? So I want to see if this button works. So let me get my, I need to move my window around. Okay, so I have this. Yeah, so you can see I connect to this button, right? Right now it's running. So I have this design on here. If you want to see the result, you can see here one of the button. So don't worry about the details. All right, I have the steps in the lab, right? So I just want you to see the whole process for now. So if you press this test display, right? So that means you want to run test this screen, test this button. You can see here right now it shows released, right? And the button you see here, it's not highlighted. So now I will start to, maybe I move this way a little bit. All right. So you can see the PL as well as a result. All right. I'm going to press this button on the HMI. So you can see when I press this, the color change on the, oh, I look at the wrong one. So sorry about it. You can see here right now is lab 1. So that's a good thing because you can see here I connect to the main program, right? That's a different one, right? You see here momentary, it's not maintained, right? So this is nothing to do with this PB, right? That's a different scope, all right? Accidentally, I can demonstrate this. So we need to look at this, all right? This is the maintain. I connect to this button on here. So I'm going to click this maintain button. That change to red color. In the same time, you can see here, it's being highlighted. If you move the cursor, you can see here, right? The value is 1 now. And also the PL is energized, right? So this is a maintain push button. If I press again, it's gonna release. You can see that response on the PLC now. All right, so this is a quick test. So now you can click this button called edit. So when you click on this, you go back to design mode, all right? So we want to design a pilot line now. So with pilot line, that's gonna be a different object, all right? So multi-state indicator, that's the one we're gonna use. Of course, you can use different object, but the one I suggest you to use is this. All right, so again, same way, select the tool, draw on here. So this time, because it's a pilot line, I want to change the shape to a circle. You can do that. When you apply, you can see on the background, it changed to a circle, right? So I used to represent the light. And also notice here, this object has multi-state, right? So the default is 4 of them. But with pilot line, we know there's only 2 of them, right? So you can see here, there's so many display states, but we only need to change it to 2. You can type in 2, all right? So that's one thing you need to set up, all right? So if you don't change it, accept the 4 states, I'll let you to look at it here. If you go to the next step, you will see here, there are 4 different states on here from 0 to 3, right? But we know that's not appropriate for the pilot line. So that's why we want to go back to general, highlight here, change to 2 states. Oh, I opened it, I closed it, but it's okay. You can also double click the object to open that window again. All right, so we change that to 2, then click states, you only have 2 of them, right? Of course, you can change the captions, but I don't want to do that. I just need to change the state 1 represent on. So I want to change it to the color red, right? So that's the only thing I want to change. You can, of course, you can get other things changed, right? The most important thing, you need to connect to PLC. Right, so that's why we need to connect to connections, go to tag, and then over here, remember we have a PV and PL. So now this time we click PL. So that's the pilot line, and click OK. then you finish. So now let's test again. So now because we have both the PB and PL show up, right? So let's go to test display. So button is released, pilot light is blue, right? Which is state 0. So when you press that, right? Press that button response and logic energize the PL. Then in the same time on your HMI, you see the light turn on here. Okay, so this is the basic setting on the buttons. All right, so remember that we also have different buttons on here. So, sorry. So for demonstration purpose, all right, I won't design that on this screen. Just let me go back to the main. So for example, I want create the momentary in here in this screen, right? Of course, you can decide to go to which screen at your choice. For me, I just want to design my momentary on here. And this time, I also want to change the shape. This time, maybe I change to a ellipse, all right? So that's the button we can use on here. So for this time, I'll just quickly, all right, stay 0, I don't need to change anything. Stay 1, when I press, I want to show green. And also connection, I want connect to different one. So now we have the tag browser. Remember, this is main program, right? So this time we want to go back to connect to PLC on lab 1, which is momentary. It's different program, different scope, right? So that's why on the HMI, you need to do the correspond same as to reflect the change, right? So you need to highlight this program lab 1. So this is the PL. Even though they have the same tag name, I choose that deliberately. I just want you to know they are different scopes, right? So this is the PB, and same thing for the indicator, choose PB, right? So that's the same thing here. So we can click OK, finish the button on here. And then I need to get another multi-state indicator to get a square. This time I use a square. So for this time, same thing, 2 different states. And the connection, we want to change to the lab 1 PL, right? So that's the quickly set up on here and click OK. All right, so same thing. I can test my display on here, right? Test display, you can see this is lab 1 momentary button, right? So I'm going to press and hold the button. Remember, this is momentary, right? So when I hold button, you will see this PB highlight. When I release, you will see that highlight gone, right? And in the same time, you can notice the PL. So when I press and hold it, you can see the PLC change. And the PL didn't change, all right? Go back to design, go on here. Connection is good. The state. Oh, I didn't change this. Sorry. So I didn't change the color. State 1 represent on, right? So I want to change that to red color, or change it to different color this time. Let's change it to green. All right, change it to green this time. All right, click OK, finish that. All right, so then we go back to test again. Click test, press button, the green light turn on, right? Because it's momentary, right? So when I release, it's gone. It's different from the maintain, right? So this is one way to test, right? You can test individual display by doing this. This is called quickly testing, all right? So just give me a few minutes, I can finish the whole demo on here. So the other testing, all right? Also, you want to see the navigation, right? So navigation on the go to button. So that's why that's another way you want to go to test. It's called the test application. So first you need to stop your testing on the display. So you have 2 of them. So now if you go to application, you will have an option called test application. So that means you test everything together. All right, I didn't save change. It asks you save change, yes, and save change, yes. So that's gonna start. It will take a while. All right, so that depends on the computer and the program, right? So you can see here that's the progression. You just need to wait and for the test to show up. So in this way, we can test both screen and also the navigation. All right, there's a pop-up on my screen. All right, so I just click yes to confirm. You will see this pop-up. All right, and then here, remember at the beginning we set up the title bar, right? So, oh, something happened out here. I think it's okay. Yeah, it just yeah, something happened on here. So now we have this title bar show up on here, right? So you can see this is shutdown and this is go to. And if we press the momentary button, we still have the logic on here, right? The green light turn on, it has some delay. And also we can test the display go to now. So now we go to my display one now, right? So if we press this button, maintain button, this one has no response, right? Because again, different scope. But if you go to different one, so that's the one response on this one, right? If I release, you can see that gone, right? And then let's go back here. All right. So there's another go to button. We can press this to go back to main, right? So this is the main screen, right? So you can see this, even though this is a very simple one, it's just a process, the whole process you create on there, right? With the application. So of course, there's no way I can show you the transfer because I don't have a PLC, but I don't have a panel on here. So basically you need in the lab, you can create and transfer the file into the panel, right? Maybe I have another chance to demonstrate that. And then again, for backup restore, that's going to be a different story. Maybe I can demonstrate in different time, all right? But for this, for now, as the basic process design steps, that's the whole process, right? So this shutdown is system generated. So when you press this, basically shut down everything, right? So this is the whole process. I can demonstrate. All right, just give me a minute. And okay, so little bit